Hey YouTube, I'm back with my August wrap up just to talk about the books that I read in August and a couple of buddy reads that I'm doing now and into September. So I'm going to start out with the books that I don't have right in my hands right now. So I first read The Pride of Baghdad, which is a graphic novel by Brian K. Vaughan, and it was about, or I should say, a fictionalized account of these lions that escaped from the Baghdad Zoo during the war between the U.S. and Afghanistan. It's a really good story. The ending is very sad. I was caught off guard by it. My friend Lawrence let me borrow this and the next series I'm going to talk about. But yes, I did enjoy reading it, even though it had an ending that shocked me. But I think it's worth picking up if you get it from the library, if you buy it. I think that's one you should definitely read if you like graphic novels. And the next series I'm going to talk about is Why the Last Man series. So it's a comic book series. And Lawrence is an avid comic book fan. So he let me borrow books 1 through 10 of Why the Last Man. And it's a compilation of all the comics from that series. So the series is over now, but I must say I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because it just cleaned, like, they ended that series so well. Brian K. Vaughan is a really good writer, and I enjoy his work, so I enjoyed both of those books. And I read the first book of Saga, the Saga series. But as far as Why the Last Man, the first two were really good. I got a little bored around the third. Definitely the fourth book. And 5 was okay. 6 was okay. 7 got a little boring. 8 it picked up. And then 9 through 10 were really good. Like once he was closing out, telling you how all the men, and that's what the series is about. There's only 2 men left, so which is Yorick Brown and his pet monkey Ampersand. So they're the only people with the last Y chromosomes on Earth, and you go through that with that being the plot of the story, his journey, and he's also looking for his girlfriend. So of course things get interesting. Like it spans about, I would say, 5 years, the story, or maybe even more than that. But it was really good. Ended really clean. All your questions were pretty much answered, and yeah, that's definitely something I would say you should go pick up if you like comics, or you just want a good story. It was a good story. Even when I got a little bit bored, I just really wanted to know what happened at the end, and I was not disappointed with the ending. Alright, so I also read the first series of Saga. I don't have too much to say about that, even though I liked it. Yeah, I don't have much to say about Saga, but that's going to be a series that I just kind of read at work in between books, and that's what I did. I was reading something kind of heavy, so I put it down. I read Saga. I just took it off the shelves. And if not, I'll just take that one and get it from the library. I don't think it's something I'm going to buy, but it is. I think it's pretty worth the read. The end of the first book was really cute. It's more about, like, I thought it was going to be more like, it is fantasy a bit, but the story about the daughter, Hazel, and, you know, her family, it's kind of like a family saga so far. At least that's the vibe I'm getting from it. So yeah, that's for the books that I don't have in my hands, and all of Brian K. Vaughan's works that I've picked up and read this month. So let me get into the books I actually do own. So I read 4 regular novels. I've read 1 book of poetry and 1 collection of essays, and these are in no particular order. So I also finished Milk and Honey this month. I really enjoyed this collection of poetry. It's very simple but a good read. I think young girls and young women, or all women too, could pick this up. I definitely think this is a good read for younger women. I think Rupi Kaur said that she was about 21 when she wrote this, or it's about her 21-year-old self, and I really related to this book of poetry. It has pictures. The stanzas are pretty easy to read. There is nothing, you don't really need to be an avid poetry reader to understand this. You don't need to really understand the parts of poetry. And that's one thing that I really appreciated about this book. So pick up a copy of this if you're interested about reading a story of a woman's journey into loving herself. That's how I describe it. So yes, Milk and Honey. My next one, and I read this earlier in August, Land of Love and Drowning by Tiffany Yannick. So I wanted to read this for at least a year now, and I finally got it. It's about 400 pages. Even though I enjoyed the story, at least 100 pages could have been cut out this book. It has some magical realism elements. However, I feel like some of the magical realism, there are certain parts of the book that could possibly be considered magical realism, but I think the obvious parts of magical realism happen at the end of this book. It's more of like a story of a family in St. Thomas. If you do not like incest, do not read this book. I enjoyed it. It was a little weird, but I did enjoy the read. Her writing is beautiful, but I'm still kind of trying to figure out the purpose of this book, other than to tell a family story. Oh, and a story of sisters. I think their sisterly bond was really beautiful. But yeah, it was I keep going back to it being very long because it took me so long. I feel like it took me almost 2 weeks to get through this book, and I think it would have been a stronger book if some of it was cut out. I don't think it sped up until around page 150, 150, that area where things really started to get interesting, to me at least. If you read this, let me know what your thoughts are, and if you pick it up. I don't think this is something you have to own, but I think it's worth a look if you're interested in learning about the Virgin Islands. Did I say St. Thomas? No, St. Thomas is a part of the Virgin Islands. If you're interested in learning about the Caribbean or like the Virgin Islands, it mentioned like some really small islands which were interesting in here. And yeah, if you want to read a book about family lineage, this will be a read for you. All right. So the next one was The Fire This Time by Jesmyn Ward. Well, not by her, edited by her, and it has other authors in here talking about being black in America and race, inspired by The Fire This Time by James Baldwin. I originally wanted to give this a review, but I think to give this a fair review, I would have to reread A Fire This Time by James Baldwin. I read Baldwin years ago. I was in undergrad when I first read The Fire This Time, and I like that. I like this. I think Edwidge Dandycat had the strongest essay in this book. Oh my gosh, that last essay was great. It was called, let's see. It's called Message to My Daughters, and oh, she makes such a great point about being black and the fact that you can end up a refugee in your own country. Oh, it was I don't know, it was just the most powerful essay to me. Even though I like Jesmyn Ward, I think her introduction essay to the book is actually stronger than the essay she contributed to the overall collection. But I still enjoyed reading this. There's a few poetry elements in here too. You have Claudia Rankine in here. Who else? Let's see, Claudia Rankine, Kim Jones. Who are some people I liked reading? Carol Anderson. I don't have White Rage, but my aunt has that one, so she just put that book out. Kevin Young, I've read some of his poetry. I liked it, and I liked his essay, and it talks about like Rachel Dolezal. I mean, I wish she would just disappear, but here she comes again. But nonetheless, I liked the point he was trying to make in his essay. Keith Lehman is somebody I need to read. And Natasha Trethewey, I read her poetry. Oh, and Daniel Jose Older. I think I'm going to have to go over that. That was a letter, I think, to his wife or girlfriend. I feel like I'm going to have to read that one again. I think it went a little bit over my head, but yes, I would say this is worth the read too. If you're really into collecting essays, if you really want to compare it to The Fire this time, you don't necessarily need to buy it, but I think it's a good thing to have in your collection. You've got some strong writers in here, and it's worth having. It's worth having in your collection and worth writing about. So if you're a person that likes to mark up your books, I think you would definitely get your money's worth if you bought this. Alright, so the next one, and I didn't finish this one, but I feel like I got the gist of it. For White Folks Who Teach in the Hood and the Rest of Y'all Too, Reality, Pedagogy, and Urban Education by, who's this by? Christopher Edmond. So this was pretty much talking about how to teach kids in urban schools, urban areas. So it was mostly focusing on African American students, but it talked about Native American students, Pacific Islanders, students who basically come from a different community than you. If you're a teacher and if they come from a different community than you need to use your students as a way to learn how to teach them. So it's talking about not just group projects, but actually getting their input, having them teach the class, call and response, making sure that they are understanding the lesson that you're putting in front of them. And you have to break those cultural barriers to make sure you understand them and that they understand you. It's not that kids of color are disinterested in learning. It's just that sometimes the cultural differences between them and their teacher make it look that way. And also the stuff they're dealing with at home affects them while they're in the classroom. So yes, if you are a teacher, I wouldn't say this helps early childhood education, but I would say if you're getting up to about 5th, 6th grade, definitely high school, I would pick this up if I was you. Alright, the next novel, Your Heart is a Muscle the Size of a Fist by Sunil Yapa, and this is his first novel. So this was suggested to me by my coworker Ellie, and she had really liked this book. It's his fictionalized version of the World Trade Organization protest out in Seattle that happened in 1999. Oh, it had some really interesting characters, some really interesting points. It talked about police brutality. It had kind of like the good cop, the bad cop. It also had like a father-son relationship where a son was the protester and the father was was the chief of police. It talked about nonviolent protesting. It was really good. I don't know that much about the protest itself. He has a list in here of the sources that he used to educate himself while and before he was reading this book. I just looked up a quick Wikipedia search on the protest that they were talking about, and I have to do my research because the Wikipedia, of course I did, it was just quick. It didn't give too much detail, so what I'm gathering is that more happened to these protesters than what was portrayed publicly. That they were being peaceful and they were being a bit disruptive, and then worse stuff happened when the police kind of felt that they were being unruly or what have you. So don't take my word for it. Read this book and read up on the actual protest itself, I think. And I also think this is worth a second read. I want to read this a second time to understand what Yapa is trying to do with fictionalizing this event. Okay? And last but not least, this was the first book I finished. I started this in July, but I finished it in August, so I added to my August wrap-up. Here Comes the Sun. I already have a review of this on my channel, and I need to get back to doing book reviews, like actual book reviews. I just wasn't moved to actually do a book review this month. And I feel like Your Heart is a Muscle the Size of a Fist needs a second read before I can give it a proper review. But yes, Here Comes the Sun was such a good book. I don't know if I gave it 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. If not, I probably need to change it. This was so good, guys. It was her first novel. The characters were interesting. The story was interesting. There's like a plot twist that I was not expecting. Oh, this is such a great novel. I was really sad when it ended. The ending was a little weak, but I think that's because I just wanted the story to keep going. It closed up the story well. The ending did it anyways. I can appreciate Dennis Ben for writing this novel, and I would definitely give this a second read as well. Not for it could be used like in a literary class, like an English class, if you were talking about Caribbean literature as well. But especially when it's talking about homosexuality in Jamaica, the way she talks about it, and even the resort industry in Jamaica is an interesting aspect she talked about in this book. But yes, please, if anything, pick this book up. I love this book. This probably is going to be listed as one of my favorite books by the end of the year. Alright, so that's the end of the books I read in August. I'm just going to go over a few buddy reads I'm actually currently in the middle of and going to do in September. So I'm currently in the middle of A Little Life by Hanya Yagihara. And the day I decided to do a buddy read with Mathis, I actually taped a video that I was going to put on YouTube asking people if it's worth to keep reading this book, because I honestly think there's something unethical about the way the author is treating Jude, giving him all these, like, he's been through abuse, he's been in accidents, he is dealing with self-harm, he just has no self-esteem, and I feel like his character, or writing a character where his life is just this miserable, even the good stuff that has happened to him have not helped his situation at all. Somehow, without his own, all the situation, majority of them are not his fault in the least bit, and he just can't catch a break, and it's really hard for me to read through it, and I'm starting to get a little bit disgusted by this book, not because of people who deal with the actual things Jews are dealing with. It's disgusting, just because I feel like it's a bit disgusting that it's written in a way where this person is dealing with all of these issues at once and just can't get a break. I feel like it's something cruel about writing a character like that, and I know it's fiction, but it's really getting under my skin, guys. If it wasn't for Mathis at Matt's Books and Bites on YouTube, I would not be reading this book. I'm really trying to get through it, and this will probably be the first and last time I read this book. Alright, so, and then me and Mathis and B at Books with B are going to read And the Mountains Echo together starting September 8th. So that's the start date we're going to do our buddy read. We're going to read this together, and I'm really excited about it. I got this when it first came out. I have not touched it since. I've heard it's good. His favorite novel of mine is A Thousand Splendid Suns, and I feel like it's interesting to have your second novel be better than like the first, because Kite Runner was a strong novel when it first came out, and I enjoyed it. The movie does no justice to that book. Do not watch the movie The Kite Runner, just read the book. But anyways, yes, A Thousand Splendid Suns is one of my favorite books, and I can't wait to get into this one. I heard it deals with siblings in this one as well, so for that. And my friend Crystal wanted to buddy read with me once she heard I was doing a buddy read with Mathis. She doesn't have a YouTube, but I figured, hey, why not? Me and her could read something together. So I picked up Boy Snow Bird today at the bookstore, and I'm going to read this with Crystal. I might do a review if I'm so moved. I hope Boy Snow Bird doesn't need as much attention as I think her short story collection needs, as far as me being able to read it on the go. But either way, I think I'm going to enjoy this. Alright, so that is my August wrap up. those are some of the books I'm reading in September. I don't do TBR lists because I know I'm not going to stick to them. I'm more of a, like, oh, I feel like reading this type of book, so I grab that and read that. Okay, so let me know if you have an August TBR. Let me know if it's up, and I will definitely watch it. I love watching those videos. Let me think of some of the books that I've read. Have you read them? Are you interested in reading them? If you have any book suggestions by any of these authors, let me know, and I will be back with another video later. Bye.